You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hi, we are Enterprise-Splaining, the podcast where we explain Star Trek Enterprise to each other and to you. I am Jamie, and these are my co-hosts Maria.
Hello!
And Bill.
Hey, everybody.
Today, our mission is a second contact. Last week, I told Bill and Maria what happened on the Star Trek Enterprise episode, The Communicator. They have now watched the episode and are back with their thoughts. So make sure that you listen to last week's episode before you listen to this one, because this one is a follow-up to last week. So, Bill, give me a thought about The Communicator. What do you think about it?
They're trying. They're really trying
so
to get
hard.
there. I feel like, so if the premise of this show is we're going to show you the start of Starfleet and how they got to the Star Trek we know, this was a kind of good step in that direction. We still don't have the prime directive yet. And they're starting to get an idea that maybe we should have one of those. But my problem is...
Some sort of directive.
They've already had that discussion. They should have the prime directive.
Yeah.
Or some sort of directive.
Some kind of directive.
It's incredibly frustrating. Also, the fact that I am fairly sure we'll never hear from or about this planet ever again. Like, for a show that is really surprisingly good at like follow-ups within the crew, they're really bad at follow-ups in the larger universe. Like, we just never hear from these.
To be fair, that's how most Star Trek is, with some exceptions.
Right, but I feel like they made this point to be like, we want to specifically talk about, when the ship is damaged, they have to deal with it in the next episode or whatever. And so they are intentionally trying to do that.
Yeah, there's more of like a thorough line.
Yeah.
And so this episode was grappling with this, but the weird part was Archer went too far the other way, where they get captured by these, and they're trying to deny, that anything is weird at all. But then he makes the weird choice to confirm the guy's idea that this enemy nation has bioengineered soldiers, which makes things worse on this planet.
So much worse. He makes things so much worse. It makes no sense whatsoever for him to make that choice. Because he keeps going, no one's going to believe us, when they're literally like, we think this is who you are. We think you are an alien. Nobody would ever believe that. Like, what? It makes no sense.
It was sort of a ham-fisted episode. TNG would have done this where Picard would have revealed that, yes, we are a highly advanced civilization who is accidentally visiting your planet, and that would have an effect on the guy. It's like, well, maybe peace is the better way.
Picard would have like wrestled with it and felt bad about it, but been like, in this case, this was the thing that would cause the least amount of harm. Mm-hmm. Archer is not thinking. He's just like, it's so one note. He's like, T'Pol told me we should not tell pre-warp civilizations that we are aliens because it will cause harm. Therefore, we have to do everything we can, including messing up their civilization more. But at least we didn't tell them we were aliens. That would have been terrible.
And he just never thinks it through and has to have T'Pol explain it to him. The one thing I will give them, and we've talked about this before, how you don't see like the captain staring out into space, grappling with the intensity of the thing that he has just done. We actually do see that in this episode. Right. Like at the very end where he's like, oh, fuck, I fucked up. I gotta think about what I've done. But it's a little different, right?
Yeah, Scott Bakula, his acting in that scene is so good. You see the moment that he realizes that he fucked this up really bad. You see it on his face, and it's like his whole face falls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you really...
And then he's just like, oh. Oops.
Yeah, it's Scott Bakula being like, oh, right. Scott Bakula can act, remember? Like, it's hard to remember in this show, but he's really freaking good. I had a few, like, just smaller things, not these big, am I remembering this correctly? Because it's been like a week and a half since I watched this episode, but was there something where Malcolm took his shoe off and showed us his foot? Like he had a bunion or something? Or did I imagine that?
I do not remember this.
I don't remember that. Are you sure that you're not complaining that with Phlox trimming his toenails?
That was what I was saying. No, there was a scene where look, I confirmed this with Steven. His foot, we see his foot, and I'm like, but
wait, was it when they were in the prison?
Yeah,
maybe?
Yeah, he takes his shoe and his sock off and is like looking at his foot, and I'm like, I didn't, and I have a note here that says I did not need to see that. In the same way, I did not need to see Phlox's toes being clipped in that other, and I'm like, why are these people obsessed with feet?
I do not remember this.
Pretty sure it happened. I mean, maybe I just made it up, but if so, it was
I believe
team
you.
hallucination.
I remember him doing something weird in the prison. I don't think I paid that much attention to it.
Yeah, because I'm sure it's correct because Steven suggested the title for that episode should be Malcolm Gets a Bunion and Forgets His Keys.
You're saying in the shuttle pod should have one of those doormats that tells you to check to make sure you have your phone, wallet, and keys before you get on them.
Exactly.
Communicator, phase, pistol, keys.
None of it made any sense to me. Like, particularly, the other thing was their makeup wasn't surgical. It was makeup. So literally, they could have been like, look, rip it off. Look, I'm an alien. Like,
it was just an odd choice between saying nothing, which I understand that is a dramatically weird choice that these two characters cannot say anything. It was just a weird choice to flip it over to, other than deny. To
be like, no, we are actually Alliance spies.
Creating a whole nother narrative about where they came from,
especially after the general was extremely skeptical and he was basically like, it doesn't make sense that they're Alliance spies, therefore they must be aliens. And they're like, no. And then came up with justifications for why they're actually definitely could be Alliance spies in order to make it plausible. And then turned around and were like, well, we couldn't tell them we were actually aliens. They wouldn't believe us.
It makes no sense, particularly since they had so much evidence. Like, their blood and their they haven't been surgically altered, and they knew all of that stuff, so they had all this evidence to show that they were aliens, but no.
Not only that, but the general was so skeptical of the fact that they were the Alliance. He actually still was like, I think they're aliens, that he was going to murder them so they could do an autopsy to confirm it.
That's the other thing. They were willing. So at the end, she's all like, you were willing to die for this, and I did not expect that. If they had died for it, that would have been worse. Like, they would have then had their bodies that they could then dissect and figure out, and
then they'll really know that they're aliens. They will confirm it. So, what was the point of dying if dying will confirm the thing you're trying to hide?
This was this planet's Roswell. Oh my God, I just figured it out. This was their Roswell. Better episode if they would have tried to play it funny.
Yes. And there were moments that they could have done that. The other thing that really annoyed me about this was Chekhov's invisible arm that never paid off.
So stupid.
Never paid off.
So freaking stupid.
How could they not have some sort of a thing where that ends up being useful for some reason?
Yeah. Or even just something funny that he does with it. We get the one scene of him with Phlox, where Phlox tells him to move his fingers. But then after, they could have done so much more. It feels like a real missed opportunity.
Some of the subplots on Star Trek Enterprise feel like this was longer in the original version of the script, and then for what it got cut from the final episode, or they didn't film it or something. And this feels like I
think so.
A vestigial tale.
It would have been actually really interesting if all of Trip had disappeared.
Except his arm.
He was just his arm is left. then they could have been like, well, I'm cloaked and the ship is cloaked, and so I can go and rescue them, because their plan, what was their plan, by the way? I still don't understand what their plan was, because they were gonna be cloaked and land in the middle of their compound and then just get out and run
without anybody seeing them.
They were still gonna be seen.
But like, yeah, it didn't really make any sense. So, like, you mentioned the script, Bill. Like, after I watched this episode, I was thinking that there must have been something weird going on with the script writing. Like, maybe somebody started it, then they adapted it from something else. They, like, combined two scripts, then somebody dropped out and someone else had to take over and rewrite it. Like, that's what it feels like, because, like, especially the part where with the, like, they won't believe us, it just feels like something was up with the script. Like something was not right with it.
There was a connection that was not made somewhere.
Yeah.
Also, from the perspective of the military guys, the Nazis, basically, killing both of them didn't make any sense. Kill one of them and dissect him,
and then question the other one about it.
Right. And also scare that guy, so he'll probably tell you more. Like, dissect Archer and then question Malcolm, and Malcolm will fucking cave in a minute.
It would have been interesting too, like the conversation between them would have been different if it was like just Archer that was going to get murdered, or if it was just Malcolm.
Yep.
Malcolm was very willing to like give his life, and then it was also Malcolm. But I do feel like had it been just Malcolm, I do feel like Archer, it would have like felt different to him that he's sacrificing one of his people, which he was, because they were both gonna get killed.
Sure.
But I do think like him having to like be alive with Malcolm dead because he made this choice, I do think he would have wrestled with it differently if that were the case.
Here's a thought. Beyond the fact that the Suliban pod had the cloaking device, which is why they needed to use it for the rescue, were they planning on pinning this on the Suliban? In the final report, we didn't do anything wrong. We showed up in the Suliban. We're down there.
I don't even know these assholes.
What are they even going to say in their report?
We done fucked up?
It just...
Again?
We need some kind of directive.
Something. We need some directives. The other thing that I had is actually something Stephen pointed out, which I think is very true, and was sort of particularly noticeable here when they're sort of showing their tech. Their tech is too small, because this is pre-original series. Think about the communicators on the original series. Their tech is too small. It's too compact like, why would have gotten bigger in the future?
Especially their scanners. Like, DePaul has her like little scanner that looks like a compact. Tricorders look like old cassette recorders on original series. They are gigantic.
Yeah, that you strapped, like you have a bag that you have. Yep. Like, it makes no sense.
Sorry, this is like totally an aside. I know I've told the story about how I was on the How to Do Everything podcast before I'd ever seen any before I'd ever seen any Star Trek. And I asked, how can I watch Star Trek? There's so much. How do I do it? Where do I start? What do I do? That's when they got Jonathan Frakes on, and Jonathan Frakes told me to start at the beginning.
Right.
What I haven't told you guys is that after we recorded that, before I actually started watching from the beginning, they thought it would be funny. The host thought it would be funny to do a follow-up episode where they give me one episode of original series and one episode of TNG to watch. And they told me, like, don't talk to anybody, don't look anything up, just like watch it cold and then report back to us. And so the episode of original series they gave me to watch was the one where they go back in time and Kirk meets the nurse.
Oh, yeah, the City on the Edge of Forever.
Yes. City on the Edge of Tomorrow. So that is actually the first Star Trek I've ever seen was that episode. So afterwards, when I was talking to them about it, and like back on the podcast, although they never ended up airing this, the podcast ended up ending for other reasons not long after this, and they never ended up airing this. But when I was talking to them about it, they were asking me what I thought about the tricorders. And I was like, it's weird because I've heard so much about tricorders. Like, I have so many friends that are into Star Trek and that like cosplay Star Trek. I've seen their tricorders. I knew the word tricorder. And I'm like, but all it seems to do, I was like, I just thought it was going to be like something else. I didn't realize it was just a recording device. Because in that episode, the only thing that you see them do with a tricorder was use it as a recording device. So I was like, oh, because I don't know what I thought it was, but I was like, oh, it's just like a tape recorder.
Ooh, that's great.
A tricorder, and it's called tricorder.
Right,
and I saw them use
recorder.
it like a tape recorder. I was like, oh, it's just a tape recorder. So and they didn't correct me. They just laughed, and I didn't know why. So for a long time, I thought that tricorders were just tape recorders.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Anyways, I'm so sorry. That's just
that's fantastic.
You mentioned tricorder, and I was like, I need to tell this story on this podcast. What did you guys think of the general?
I thought it was an interesting. They actually had a little bit of nuance with this guy, which is odd, especially since he's a general in a. I guess we're supposed to assume this is a military government. It certainly seemed that way, although but it seemed like he had some doubts. Now the way he responded to that was, well, let's murder and dissect them, but it was also like, hold on a second, this doesn't check out.
Yeah, the other thing, and that does it again, Jamie, your idea that like. Stuff got cut, or maybe it was Bill, one of you guys said like stuff got cut. It actually kind of does make sense, because if you think about it, they came back from that mission, right? So they spent that mission learning about the culture and learning about what was going on, and so presumably they knew what the war was about. And
yeah, I mean, they went to a political speech.
Yeah, so if they knew all of that, and
or like a rally.
Yeah, they went to some rally. We don't know if it was the Alliance or the other guys.
No, it was theirs, because it was like the Winston Churchill like guy, and it was in the same city, and that's why when they caught them, they thought originally they thought they were Alliance spies that wanted to assassinate that candidate.
Okay, well, then that throws away my theory, because my theory was that they had figured out that these guys were the bad guys, and that the Alliance, they wanted to help the Alliance, and that's why they
did not,
and that does not seem like
that.
That's the case.
Because Malcolm thought that the guy was like Winston Churchill.
Right, which is presumably a positive
Which
thing.
is weird, because the episode, like all the aesthetics was definitely giving Nazi. And it was like a military, it seemed like it was like a military government, but then they were just like, he's like Winston Churchill. It was just like it was weird. I was like, weird. I don't know what to think about this country.
And I would like to make one thing clear. In the last episode, I was like, I like a man in uniform, not those uniforms. Let me be clear. No, not those.
I have a question. So basically the premise of Enterprise is this is Star Trek before Starfleet. This is before they're learning everything.
Sure.
But before Federation, not Starfleet.
The Federation. Do we feel that these characters are actually learning things?
Well, I think that's what they're trying to say in this episode, is that Archer learned from T'Pol constantly saying, but he learned the way a 2-year-old learns, like through repetition. T'Pol says cultural contamination is bad, so I should not do any of that. And there's no nuance to that thought process at all.
I do feel like the last scene.
Yeah, agree.
Because he there wasn't nuance, but then in the last scene he realized that, which presumably means that he's now realized that he needs to add nuance to some of his ideas.
So we'll see if that plays out in future episodes.
Fingers crossed.
It's like the only learning and growing that they do is learning and growing towards creating the Prime Directive. That's the only thing we ever see.
And I'm kind of bored with that now. Like, okay, yeah, we get it.
They've done it so many times.
Now just fucking figure out the Prime Directive and let's move on into some other problem, because there are lots of problems from going into space. Lots of them.
And again, wild that they left Earth. to go out on this mission and had no protocols for what to do if they meet a pre-warp civilization that has never met any other aliens.
I mean, they have no protocols for any of that. Like, even
No, they're making everything up on the fly.
It makes no sense.
And I think it would have been more interesting if there were, I would love if they had like a big thing of like hundreds of pages of all these things that like Starfleet thought through everything and came up with, and then they're out there and actually like none of it matches,
None of it is
right?
helpful.
Like
Agreed.
The nuances of the actual situation are like, maybe there was a protocol that they couldn't say, but now they're like, well, this doesn't make sense. It actually harms them more if we don't say. That would have been really interesting.
How many times do we say that? Like, if they had just changed this one thing, that would have made it such a more interesting episode. If they had just used Trip's missing arm in some way, that would have made this such a more interesting episode, right?
Bill, do you have anything else?
Enterprise is taking a really, I want to say good, but I'm going to qualify that in a second turn with these last few episodes, because the thing I said is I just want narrative competence in terms of the story. I want a beginning, a middle, and an end. I want things to make sense. And the last few episodes have been doing that, but in kind of a boring way. Like we had the episode that I narrated where they went down to the mining planet, but that was just an A-team episode.
Yep.
But it was a solid piece of storytelling. It just wasn't particularly Star Trek-y. And this feels like a more it feels like they're getting the legs of storytelling under them, where things make sense A to B, but they're not.
It's still not Star Trek
leading to a greater
storytelling.
point. Yeah.
I also, like, we talked about this in the last episode, like, transporters would have, like, the fact that they have transporters breaks so much of the narrative. Like, the stories they're trying to tell just don't work because they have transporters. And I know that was a network decision.
Network made them do it, but I feel like TNG did a good job at when things could be fixed with transporters. They would have just like a line of dialogue that's like, oh, the atmosphere of this planet means we can't use the transporters. Like whatever. Just like have that line. And I say TNG always did this. The truth is that I wasn't watching that closely because I wasn't following it for a podcast. So maybe they also, I could be wrong on that. Maybe they also often did not do that. And I just remember the times they did.
Yeah, but TNG just generally, it was better storytelling. It was more interesting. So you didn't care. You didn't care that much about, okay, that's a little weird. Why did they not do that? You don't dissect that stuff when you're enjoying the storyline.
Oh, Maria, you did not see me watching TNG because I was constantly yelling at it. And actually, you should know this because in our Zoom calls every week, I would be like, this episode, they could have just solved it with a transporter. Why didn't they? This is me all the time.
Yeah,
so.
Fair.
All right. Any final thoughts from either of you?
It was okay. It's a C episode, which for this show is really, really good.
Yeah.
It's not as much fun to talk about because they didn't do anything particularly crazy. On the other hand, they didn't do anything really crazy. So yeah.
I agree. And it was bad. Like, it was bad. What they did was bad, and they should feel bad. That's how I...
All right. Well, with that out of the way, I have a secret bonus topic today that I wanted to talk to you guys about that I did not tell you guys ahead of time.
It's Diane Warren.
So we have the three of us, along with a bunch of other friends. We've got a group chat. And recently we were talking in there about Enterprise because that's apparently all we think about anymore.
It's who we are now.
I can't remember how we got on this topic. I think we were talking about Carbon Creek and the scene with the sheet and the nipple. And somebody went to like Memory Alpha, and then... I think it was my spouse, Eric, had noticed that, like, in the article about a Memory Alpha, the word breast was, like a link.
Oh, God. I remember this discussion.
Clicked on it and realized that there is a Memory Alpha page on breast. And I do want to say that Maria then started saying that it's Mammary Alpha. And I forgot about that. So I will be calling it Mammary Alpha for the rest of this segment.
Lord.
In fact, ever since we did this, every time I go to say Memory Alpha, I have to stop and think to make sure that I don't accidentally say Mammary Alpha.
Wonderful.
I went to this page and I just want to read you guys some things from the Memory Alpha page for breast. And it is singular breast.
KO, can you layer some sultry, royalty-free music underneath this discussion?
It is singular breast, not breasts. Breast is the page.
You just need one.
Also,
Breast plural is a separate page.
do not pull it up, Maria, because I'm good at
I'm not.
Okay. The first thing on it is that boob redirects there.
Oh my lord.
It defines breasts. It defines breasts. Okay.
You sound like
says-
you sound like you're giving a high school speech. Memory Alpha defines breast as
Breast was the collective term for physical protrusions of mammary glands on most species, both male and female. In most humanoid species, females were distinguished from males through larger breasts, which was commonly a source of sexual attraction. Male breasts were typically useless, while females might use theirs for breastfeeding.
Okay.
And then underneath this, there's this note that says, on Earth, only mammals breastfeed, making it unclear what their function was in the many non-mammalian-looking breasted species seen on Star Trek.
I think we all know what its function was.
Yep.
I also want to mention that in that definition, there were two things that were links to other Memory Alpha pages, and one was breastfeeding and the other is sexual attraction.
Oh my god.
So there's apparently a Memory Alpha page for sexual attraction. I did not click on it, but maybe
maybe Memory Alpha
future.
becomes a new segment.
Oh,
Did Trip's wrist nipples get a subsection on the breast?
Great question.
Okay.
Okay. So it also says, if for some reason a woman ended up topless in public, she would frequently use an arm or any object to prevent her breast from being seen by others. And next to that was a photo of the Hoshi topless with her arms covering her breast.
Excellent.
And it said, some Dabo girls at Quarks wore dresses that showed part of their breasts so as to appear attractive to the male customers.
And some of the women.
This page
Incredible.
I just imagine like the people who are sitting here, like, thank you so much, by the way, to the people who edit Memory
Oh
Alpha.
my God.
I don't know what we would do without them, but this page is beautiful. This page is amazing.
I cannot wait to read this and to read the discussion page that is people debating what does and does not belong.
I do want to say, so at the end, there is a list of every time anyone on Star Trek has ever like said the word breast or boob or referred to them. Mm-hmm. However, there is the only thing about Enterprise is the thing with Hoshi. They did not have a night in sickbay when Archer says, I'm doing the breast that I can.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They
good
do
point.
not have, Bill, you brought up the wrist nipples.
Mm-hmm.
Not in here.
Is there a nipples page on Memory Alpha?
We should check on that. So I'm just saying, like, if somebody is listening to the show and is a Memory Alpha editor, there are some things that need to be added to the breast page.
No, Jamie. Anybody can contribute discussion. So I think you've got your task set out for you for the next couple of weeks.
You know what? I will do this. I'm
Great
going
news.
to.
There is a nipples page on Memory Alpha.
Okay. All right. This is Memory Alpha. It's a new segment.
It's a second contact
Maria,
only.
do not read that.
Nope, not gonna read
do
it.
not read that right now. We are going to like make a list of these pages, and we are
Lord.
going to do Memory Alpha
All in.
on our second contact episodes. Yeah, I am telling you guys tomorrow. I'm going to make myself a note on my to-do list right now. Tomorrow, I am going to update the Memory Alpha page on breast, and I'm going to add. I'm going to try to like write in like the the like language that this page is
Oh no,
written
you got to
in.
match the house style, yeah.
Yeah,
For
I'm
sure.
gonna write something. So hopefully by the time people are listening to this episode, you will see that Memory Alpha has already been updated.
The other thing we need to check is see if Memory Beta, the non-canonical Star Trek website, the collection of non-canonical materials, also has this material. What a world.
If only we had thought about this sooner. Memory Beta would have been the name of our podcast.
Well, no, when we finally finish this podcast, I think we know what our next project, our next long-form Star Trek discussion podcast has to be.
Okay, I actually did. I put it on my to-do list for tomorrow, so this is gonna happen.
Excellent.
I have a weird question for you, and please cut this out, but this has been in the back of my head, and I'm sorry, there's absolutely no creepy way to discuss this, but it has been literally bothering me. So the scene where T'Pol is changing behind the sheet, and you see her nipples in shadow. Was that a prosthesis?
Did we talk about?
We did
I don't
kind
know,
of.
did we? If we did, I forgot.
You know what? Where we talked about it in a Zoom call with all of our friends,
right.
not for the podcast.
Yeah, I think that it. I don't know how. Like,
I don't think that was her real nipple.
Neither option is great.
I do not know how it could be her real nipple.
Yeah, I think they must have put something on her.
I guess it could have been cold, but like that was a hard nipple. Like you could see the shape of it very clearly. And I don't
Right.
know, like I feel like that would be really hard, like a really hard, like if I were filming it, I would be like, it's safer to use a prosthetic.
Right.
I feel like they put on her, like, you know, the Kardashian, the Skims that have the, they make the shirts that have, like, the nipples so that it looks like your nipples are hard. Like, something like that.
Yeah, I agree. It had to have been something like that.
Also, KO, do not cut this out. This is an important conversation.
Memory Alpha.
Also, this, now that I think about it, this was the conversation that we were having that led us to find the Memory Alpha page on Breast.
Yes.
Yep, I'm pretty sure that's
This
right.
is what we were
There we go.
talking about.
Okay.
Pretty sure that's right.
And then we started like
just didn't
looking
remember
up stuff about that episode and that scene to see if there was anything in there about how they made the nipple. And that led us to discover the page on Breast.
Oh my god.
And with that, we can move on to read alerts because we have some mail from a listener. And this is read as in READ for read alerts.
We are reading your emails. This is a read alert. Yeah.
And I just want to say, read alerts were the second thing that I learned about Enterprise. And when are we getting a goddamn read alert? Like, Malcolm needs to invent the read alert. When is he going to do this?
I don't know. I have been wondering about that, and I have not looked it up. At one point in the not too distant past, I was like, what if I just made that up in my head and it's not actually a thing?
No, here's why I know it's real. Because the other Enterprise podcast, First Flight Pod, they have a read alert at the beginning of every episode. Their read alert is like, there could be spoilers, which is actually why I listened to some of their episodes before they were on, but in general, I don't listen to their show because I'm always like afraid there's going to be spoilers. Yeah. Even though it is good. I really like, I just want to say I really like their show. I'm always like, I hear that. I'm like, should I not be listening? Like, I'm very careful with it because I'm so worried that I'm going to get a spoiler, but they have read alerts.
So
which means read alerts are real. You did not make them up. Malcolm is going to invent the read alert.
Just have to be
day.
patient.
Cannot wait.
But anyways, the segment read alert, READ.
Yes.
We got an email from a listener named Rachel who has emailed us many times before.
Hi,
And
Rachel.
she has a theory.
Oh.
She said that because she's been watching Enterprise, she thinks that T'Pol and Archer have different impressions of what their mission is.
Oh.
Okay.
She thinks that T'Pol thinks that they are on a scientific mission, and hence her argument in the cocaine cave. Whereas Archer, she thinks that they're on an exploration mission, and hence his insistence on like wandering around and going camping.
Okay. I like that. I like this.
And she did mention like her sister, who's a scientist, thinks of exploration meaning science. Like when she hears the term exploration, she thinks science. But as Rachel says, somebody who failed chemistry 3 times, exploration to her means like wandering around the forest, getting lost.
What's over that next hill?
That's a great perspective, because just as you were saying that, like one of them, like Archer thinks of exploration and she thinks of science. I was like, but for a science-minded person, when you say exploration, it means science. And that makes so much sense. Yeah, that's a great theory.
I like that thought. I like that thought a lot. I think it would be much better, like, if we knew what, again, to Paul is playing it very icy, but like what area of science is, what excites to Paul about discovery? And pretty much it's only been like that weird element. She was very excited about that they found on the ice cube meteor.
Yeah, and then she seems to be into the science stuff whenever they're doing stuff. Like, she seems excited about stuff in her Vulcan way.
Well, she talked a lot about, like, remember in Carbon Creek, she was like, well, I want to look at geological formations and stuff. So, which would also then tie into the asteroid thing as well.
No, I like that. I like that a lot, that Archer just wants to go over the next hill and see well, he wants to see pretty things. He wants to see a lake. Yeah. He wants to see an arachnid nebula.
Yeah, and he wants to meet people.
Yeah, and meet and like hang out with them and make friends. Yeah. And to Paul's out here like checking out the wildlife and the rocks and like doing analyses.
The microsingularities. She was very excited about that. We need to go back to find, because that's where microsingularities were, and we can prove that this exists. Yeah.
Like, ever since I read this email, I'm like, this makes so much sense.
That's great. Thank you.
So, thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
So I know we don't do recommendations in Second Contact unless we have a guest, but I did want to just do a quick follow-up on my recommendation from last week, where I recommended Taskmaster, which is a great show, and I still recommend it. But I said the only place I was able to find it was Pluto TV, and what I discovered is every single episode of Taskmaster is on YouTube in full.
Excellent.
Including the current season, which I have now started watching, which has Jason Mantzoukas in it, and it is
nice.
It has Jason Mantzoukas, and
I'm so excited.
If you ever watched the UK show, the UK version of the show Ghosts, one of the main characters from that is on it too, and it is so much fun. So much fun.
Fantastic.
So, continue to recommend that, and now there's an easier way to see it.
And that's the episode. Thanks for listening. Next week, Bill is going to be telling us about the episode Singularity, and we have a special guest astronomer coming on, because I'm sure the science in that episode will be impeccable.
Flawless. Absolutely flawless.
Special thanks to K.O. Myers at Particulate Media for sound assistance, to our friend David for our beautiful cover art, and to John Stephen King for being the voice of our computer. If you liked the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast app of choice, and tell your friends about it. We would really appreciate it. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook as @EnterpriseSplaining, and on Blue Sky as @EnterpriseSplain. I actually strongly recommend that you follow us on Blue Sky. Blue Sky, I feel like, is where we're most active. We're like posting memes all the time. We're like talking to our fans. We're reposting stuff from them. We're having a good time over on Blue Sky, so, get on Blue Sky if you're not on there already, and follow us and chat with us. You can also email us any comments or questions, such as, what is boob? to enterprisesplaining@gmail.com, and we may read your email on an upcoming Read Alert segment. If you want to support this podcast, you can find us on Buy Me a Coffee as Enterprise Splaining. We will see you next week.
Bye!
Thanks for the memories.
Were you saving that?
Kind of, sort of. It occurred to me as we were having the discussion.
If you liked the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast app of choice, and tell your friends about it. We would really appreciate it. I don't know what I said. I don't know why I said that wrong. Sorry.
Hey, Leah, you know what else is great? This promo for another podcast right here on the ESO network.
Wait,
Sean, this is our promo for our podcast.
Whether you're at home, commuting, or simply taking a break, we have some interesting coffee tales to share with you.
With each episode, we share
movie reviews, travel tales, relationships, pop culture, thrifting, and tons more.
We always have a fresh pot brewing for you right here on the
Have Coffee, Will Travel podcast.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.